Here we go.
All right, let's try this again. The last thing that I wanted to deal with is going to be authoritarianism, and I'll be fairly brief with this, but let me go ahead and start with a couple of quotes. If you look at the bottom of page 109, it says, authoritarian regimes are governed by a small group, a party, a dictator, or the army that minimizes popular input. They do not attempt to control everything. Many economic, social, religious, cultural, and familial matters are left up to the individuals. It goes on, the first indented paragraph on 109. Authoritarian regimes limit individual freedoms in favor of hierarchical organization, of command, obedience, and order. Citizens obey laws and pay taxes that they have no voice in establishing. Some trapping of democracy may exist for appearance's sake. This is basically what we're saying. The authoritarian state is going to be a state that's really in the middle of the spectrum. So if you've got the more liberal, democratic state that's going to be on this side with more equality and maybe more choice. And then if you've got the totalitarian state over here on this side that is going to be more about control and enthusiasm and brainwashing and frankly really a little bit more conservative. The authoritarian state is going to be right in the middle. And the sense of the authoritarian state is that it could go in either direction. They don't necessarily always stay authoritarian. But as they control the economies, and as the economies grow more and more, they could conceivably lean more toward this democratic idea because the people, as they become more educated, as they work harder, as they get more economic means, they begin to demand more of the government. By the same token, they could conceivably go in the other direction and become more totalitarian. Because as authoritarians get in charge and as they do more and more things, it's very, very realistic, it's very, very possible that they are going to want to control some of the other decisions beyond the economic ones that the chapter says that authoritarian regimes don't typically deal with, but totalitarian states do. What you'll see on this, and there's a quote on page 111, and it's right in the middle of the page. It says here, I'll take care of business, I'll take care of politics, you just work on your various businesses. Now, when you think about a totalitarian state, they want mass enthusiasm, they want control, they want brainwashing. You're either with us or you're against us. They want a mobilized citizenry. They're just going to try and control that frenzy that's there. An authoritarian state is not going to do this. An authoritarian state is basically going to say, you know what, we don't want to control everything, but there are certain things that are very important to us. Typically, it's going to be dealing with the economics, and they are going to step in, and they are really going to try and grow the country economically. And this is where this quote comes in. I'll take care of the politics, you work on your various businesses. We'll set you up with a climate. We're going to tell you what we want you to make, we want you to produce, and then ultimately, if you do it, that's fine. We tell you to pay the taxes. We tell you what to do as far as political things, maybe giving up some freedoms. But we're also going to basically be able to protect you as well. And if you decide in the grand scheme of things that you want to marry, that you want to get an education, that you want to have kids, we're going to stay out of that business. That's not what totalitarian states do, because they want to control all of these things. But the authoritarian states are basically saying, we understand that populations are a little lazy. We want to take advantage of this laziness, because we know if we provide enough, if we provide a floor, you're not going to want to challenge us. Now, the danger in this is that you've got states out there that are known as petrostates. And petrostates are typically countries whose economies are based basically on natural resources, in particular based on oil. And the sense of this is that oftentimes these petrostates, or any states where their economy is based on one crop or one good or one means of production, they have a danger of not only staying authoritarian, but they have a danger of falling to the totalitarian side. So when you look at some of the Middle Eastern countries, typically speaking, the better that oil is doing, meaning the higher price that we pay at the pump, the lower their freedoms are. Now, the interesting piece about this is, when you think about it, the lower the price of oil gets, the higher their freedoms become, because they're going to be more dependent upon the Western countries at this point. So when you think about this, the United States, sometimes genuinely, sometimes not, has really had this idea in its mind that indeed we're going to go and promote democracy in the world. We're going to promote democracy in the world. And one of the reasons that we've done this is we want to make it easier to be able to trade with some of these partners, some of these petrostates. The other piece to this is when oil drops and we're not driving as much, then their need for the United States assistance rises. And not only that, but so do the democratic principles of the authoritarian country. So the irony is that the more that we drive and the more that we're dependent upon oil from other places, it's not just that we're paying high prices, it's not just that we're polluting the environment, but we're actually promoting them to be less and less democratic. We're actually creating our own enemies by driving significant amounts of their oil. One last thing to think about up here is this idea that is known as the democratic peace theory. George Bush has been criticized for a lot of things, and frankly, he deserves a number of these criticisms. One thing that he was given credit for, though, was actually making the United States more active as far as promoting democracy in the world. And this is very true. I mean, there's really no debating this based on resources, based on commitment, however you want to look at it. Democratic peace theory is really the reason why. And you're probably saying, why with the economy so bad? Why with the schools so bad? Why with all of the problems in the country are we sending resources abroad? This is why. The democratic peace theory in its most basic form says democratic countries do not go to war with other democratic countries. Think about this. Democratic countries do not go to war with other democratic countries. So if the Bush administration, or if the Obama administration, or if the Reagan administration from the past was going around the world and basically attempting to promote democracy, it's not just that we're throwing money in places that we decide we want to throw money. It's the idea that if we establish democracy in other places, we're less likely to war because it's never happened in the history of the world. This isn't to say that democratic countries don't fight, because the United States has got troops all over the place. This isn't to say that democratic countries don't fight other non-democratic countries, because we do. This is just saying that democratic countries don't fight other democratic countries, so the more that we promote democracy, in theory, the more that we make the world a safer, freer place, not just for the countries abroad, but for Americans here at home.